the franchise hour.
These various
book to help me start the business.
And then I did specialize in
the last years, more than 5 years right now, we have figured out the systems and the processes to ensure that the franchising program will be a success.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Franchise Hour. Today is February 10. This is Rudolf Kotik of Aki Franchise Consultancy. This is the Franchise Hour, Season 6, Episode 5. The topic we have today is about franchisors going international, or if you want to buy a franchise from another country and you want to become a master franchisor for the Philippines. I have no guest today. Instead, I am doing a presentation on how to franchise your business outside the Philippines, or if you want to buy a franchise from abroad, how that works. But the concentration of this seminar is for Filipino franchisors who want to go international. And therefore, I have a presentation prepared, which I show you now. First of all, international franchising is the right expansion way for you if you feel you want to conquer the world, enjoy traveling and dealing with the sort of nationals. Also, to be willing to adapt your operation in different styles and to different conditions and requirements in other countries, okay? We developed more than 40 Filipino brands into international franchise systems. We developed more than 900 Filipino brands into franchise systems, and 40 of them have already franchises outside the Philippines. All right? Beside of the 40, we also developed 150 brands from outside the Philippines through international franchising, through Franmundo. This is my international franchise development company in 35 countries. Expand franchising in Australia. FranAccess in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Franovia in Bahrain, and of course through Aki Franchise Consultancy, our main company. So what does it mean to go international? What are the requirements? First of all, you have to have already a good domestic operation setup. And you should have already franchises in the Philippines. It's not a good idea to start international and you don't have any Filipino franchises yet. And even you should have already quite a number of franchises in the Philippines before you think of going international. Very important also is that your trademark, your logo, is registered and updated with the IPO Philippines, including the Declaration of Actual Use. So you won't be losing access to your trademark the soonest. Also, you have to be willing to deal with people of different nationalities, personalities, and also to accept different cultures, okay? And as I said, you have to have existing franchises in the Philippines, and you have to have already experience in running your franchise and dealing with franchisees. So now we're talking about master franchises, which we use the term when we talk of the rights to a whole country, which is applicable to the most countries in the world. However, we also use the term territory development for countries which are too big to be handled by one entity. So this is in particular the USA, Canada, China, and Australia, when we do not award the entire country, but territories, rights for either the state, province, or territory, depending on how they call it in the specific countries. So what are the benefits for you actually going international? First of all, you get access to new markets. You increase your customer base and your brand awareness, since more nationalities will be aware of your brand. You also get a competitive advantage because you see also how business runs in other countries. So you may also you take this as an advantage for your domestic franchising. Therefore, you will also expand your horizon because you will learn new things being an international franchisor. And having international franchises to boost enhances, of course, also your credibility, which increases also your long-term value. And of course, non plus ultra, you make more money because you collect also franchise fees and royalties from abroad. All right. Now, very important for us is the WIPO Madrid protocol about the trademarks. Okay, what is the WIPO? It's the World Intellectual Property Organization, which is a United States agency, United Nations agency, sorry. Charged is protecting intellectual properties through an international system that promotes and sustains creativity and innovates and helps develop international economies. WIPO is dedicated protecting IP by working with worldwide organizations. It enlists the cooperation of member states through the 9 foundational goals of its strategic plan, strategies adopted by its member states and organizations. The Philippines is a member of WIPO. What this means in plain English is that if you have a trademark in the Philippines, you can apply for a trademark in any of the WIPO Madrid Protocol member countries, and there are more than 100. All right? So the Madrid Protocol is a bilateral agreement among member countries which allows the registration in the home country for a different country, executed so far by more than 100 countries. So if you award a franchise, let's say in Oman or in Bahrain or in Australia, of course, we give territory developments. But let's say for a whole country, like I said, Oman or Bahrain, you don't have to fly to Muscat to apply for your franchise. You don't have to give it also your franchisee. You can apply it here in the Philippines and you're protected. Of course, you have to file country by country and it's kind of expensive, but I'll talk about this. So registration is per country. It's not a blanket registration. If you have already IPO for your trademark registered in the Philippines, this is only for the Philippines, okay? And before you can actually apply for a different country, you have to have first the domestic registration. If you're not registered yet in the Philippines, you cannot apply for another country through the WIPO system, all right? So, and the registration using WIPO is through IPO Philippines. So in Taguig, to apply for. And then it goes to Geneva. Geneva is like the central bank for the trademarks, all right? And then from there, it will go to the individual countries. And it's kind of expensive. The filing fee is approximately 60,000 pesos per country. So I suggest you only file for a trademark once you're really sure that you have a master franchisee or a territory developer for that country. All right. So let's talk about first for the territory developer. What is that? This is, as I said earlier, only for the USA, Canada, Australia, and China, and we can also probably include the UK, wherein the countries are too big to be handled by one entity. All right. So what we do now is we award territories. So states, like in the US has 52 states. So one state is one territory. All right. So you can offer in one country, you can give to several people, so to several entities, a territory development. All right. And first of all, you get the trademark in the Philippines for that country. So you own automatically the trademark. All right. And then, of course, the guaranteed minimum commitment by a territory developer, they have to open at least 5 outlets, of which the first 3 have to be operated by the territory developer. The contracts, of course, are longer compared to the local unit franchises or the area franchises, and the territory developer contract is of at least 15 years in length. Now, when we talk of a master franchise, we are talking of the rights exclusively for an entire country. All right. So let's say this could be Sweden or Denmark or as I said earlier, Oman or Kuwait or any of them. All right. Now, if the trademark is registered through the WIPO, then it's very clear because you can own the trademark and also for that country, okay? But if they are not a member of the WIPO, you can allow the master franchisee to register the trademark in their country. You will also allow them to sub-franchise. That's a very good way for them to expand relatively fast, meaning the master franchisee becomes the master franchisor and then is allowed to sub-franchise. Master franchise agreements are at least a minimum of 10 years, never lower than that, okay? If we have sub-franchising involved, the minimum shall be 15 years. When you look at the US master franchise agreements of most major franchise companies you see operating in the Philippines, especially the food sector, all of them have master franchise agreements of 25 years, all right? Now, if you have a master franchisee, then they have also a development program, meaning to say, we require the master franchisee to come with a development program on how many outlets they can open or sub-franchise in what period of time in their area. The minimum for a small country are 3 outlets, okay? Now, it depends, of course, the development program depends very much on the size and the population of a country. Because we have, for example, normally when we talk of small countries, let's say like, again, example, Oman or Bahrain, maybe 3 outlets will be enough. But if it's a bigger country like Saudi Arabia, maybe you need 15 outlets, all right? So that's why in our case, we provide our development clients with a global development list tailored to their business. Now, when we talk of the legal agreements needed, a master franchise agreement has to be executed, and it should be executed and notarized in the Philippines. Because if it's executed in the other country, you might be liable for filing with the local government there to become a franchisor in the first place. By assigning it here, you don't have these legal impediments, all right? Also, some Middle Eastern countries require red ribbon authentication from the embassies to be accepted as legal, meaning to say after notarization, you need court authentication and then by the embassies red ribbon. Also, the sub-franchise agreement, because the master franchisee becomes the franchisor for the countries. So they have to prepare, the sub-franchise agreements have to be prepared by the master franchisees in the country, in their country, according to their franchise laws, okay? All right. Now, for non-WIPO countries, so members who are not member of the World Intellectual Property Office, we include in the master franchise agreement a paragraph which allows the master franchisee to register the trademark in the country for the period of the master franchise agreement and delays the registration in case of termination or expiration of the master franchise agreement. Major non-member countries of WIPO are, for example, Qatar, Saudi, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Taiwan, and Burma. Also very important is what we call franchise disclosure information or franchise disclosure documentation. Several countries actually require that, all right? Franchise disclosure documentation if you want to offer master franchise in their country. For example, Saudi Arabia or Malaysia. Also, a lot of more countries even require franchise disclosure documentations for domestic franchising, meaning to say if your master franchisee engages in sub-franchising, and then you may have to assist also your master franchising in the documentation they need to produce the franchise disclosure documentation for their country. Also, some countries require registration of the franchise with government agencies, which is the duty of the master franchisee, okay? Especially if they engage into sub-franchising. Certain countries have additional rooms. I give you a few examples. Malaysia allows only sub-franchising after 3 years of operation of the master franchisee. So they have to first operate, master franchisee has to first operate company outlets for 3 years before they're allowed to sub-franchise. Also in the Gulf countries, master franchisee have to translate all agreements into Arabic if they want to sub-franchise. And then also in the US, 26 states have states law on franchising, beside of the federal law on franchising. And in Canada, each province has its own franchise law. So we prepare Canadian developments according to the Ontario law, which fits to all actually, excluding Quebec, which requires by law that everything has to be provided in French language to franchisees. So there are in certain countries very specific rules and regulations which we have to consider. These are only a few examples, okay? Now, if we allow the master franchisee to sub-franchise, that should be no issue. That is actually a very good move by a franchisor to allow the master franchisee to sub-franchise. And there's usually a sharing of royalties and franchise fees, which is usually 2/3 for the master franchisee and 1/3 for the franchisor. And of course, the master franchise agreement has to be long enough between you and your master franchisee so that they can also at least renew once the sub-franchise agreement. All right? So when we talk of fees in master franchising, first, master franchise fees always quoted in USD, except in Europe, some of them quoted in euro. And they can reach from a low of $10,000 to $1 million, depends on how strong the brand is. Most master franchises in an average go between 30 to 100,000 US dollar today for an initial contract. Royalties are lower also for master franchises compared to unit or area franchises, and range usually from 1 to 3% or around 50% of the local royalty fee. The reason is because if the master franchisee is sub-franchising, he has to make also money out of the royalties. So therefore, it will be the split, all right? So that's why 1 to 3% is a very common percentage on royalties. Continuation fees, which are very common in the Philippines, are actually an invention from us in RK Franchise Consultancy for the Philippines only in 1998. Internationally, continuation fees are not known. That's why we don't use them. So even though with companies where we use, let's say like with Nails at Glow or others which have a continuation fee in the Philippines, we use a royalty fee with percentage in global franchising, okay? Always on a percentage base in international franchising. Advertising, every master franchisee is allowed to do their own advertising. But of course, the artwork has to be approved by the franchisor. And of course, all the advertisement can be in the local language, all right? And they can also use local endorsers and should be tailored to the local inhabitants. And of course, sometimes also it's directed towards Filipino OFWs living in that country. Very important is also for several Muslim governments require that all items are halal certificate. Particularly food and cosmetic items need to be certified for JCC countries, etc. So required in Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, UAE, Qatar, Yemen, Egypt, Jordan, etc. So preferred in countries where Muslim faith is majority of the population. Also here in our neighbor countries, Malaysia and Indonesia, all right? So have it also halal certified. Very important also, if you engage into looking for franchises in international markets, that you have a whole assortment of communications. Messenger, WhatsApp, WeChat, IMO, Botim, Viber, Line, Telegram. Because in certain countries, especially in the Middle East, for example, messengers are blocked. Viber has no video. So you may use IMO or Botim, for example, okay? So whatever, so that you have always a way of communicating, better have as many communication channels as possible. Now, when it comes to hiring, or especially of staffing, especially again from the Middle East, master franchisee may request you to provide employees from the Philippines or to hire for them here. If direct hire, make sure POA and OWWA rules are observed, that you won't be accused of illegal recruitment if you hire people for your master franchisee. You may cooperate with a licensed international employment agency accredited with POA. Also, some countries require specific certification for certain professions. Even nail technicians for nail salons in certain countries have to be certified. So make sure that you have all the specific certifications for certain professionals in certain countries. Okay. Generally, for the training, master franchisee has to send his management team and probably some employees for training to the Philippines at their own expense. On the other hand, from your end, somebody has to go to the country, what we call for the opening assistance. And master franchisee has to provide the documentation for franchisor's employee to obtain visas for the employees of franchisor who will go to the master franchisee for the opening assistance. All right. And also the expense for travel and lodging and visa procurement is at the expense of master franchisee, because certainly you have to send somebody there to help them get ready. Okay. Now, when it comes to master franchise marketing, of course, you can utilize franchise marketing agencies to get leads and to penetrate for you the country better. We have for our clients who have it developed by us, we have direct marketing partners in Bahrain, in the UAE, in Singapore, in Australia. You can also join franchise expos internationally. The biggest expos in the world are in Brazil and, interestingly, in Manila. The New York Franchise Expo is very big also. The London is big. The Riyadh is big, and Paris. These are the biggest franchise expos, but Manila is quite on top of it. So very good to join the Franchise Asia show. The virtual franchise marketing, of course, Franchising PH magazine. This is our magazine. We would feature you. You can also use Facebook boosting, which you can also translate into target languages. You can use LinkedIn Pro. And Instagram is very good in certain countries also to promote your franchise there. All right? Because especially in the Middle East, again, the Arabs are fond of looking at pictures on Instagram and Snapchat. All right. So what are the steps to go international? First, get yourself internally ready to go global. So that means you have your marketing kits prepared, and you have your operations manual updated, and you have also the master franchise agreements, the territory development agreements. So all of this is ready. So we can help you there. Our franchise consultancy can help you there, or Franmundo. Then, of course, if you're a Filipino company, you have to have your trademark secured in the Philippines. As I said earlier, if you don't have your trademark secured here, you cannot apply it anywhere else. Prepare your marketing materials. You can practically use the same what you're doing here. You may just have to expand it. More picture and more details about international. And start promoting to the international market. Talk to applicants online initially. Today, we are in an advantage with the pandemic. Everybody is used to do business online. So relatively easy to interview applicants today, doing it on the online version. Then you evaluate the applicant. Then specifically to the country, you can, depends if it's a WIPO country or not a WIPO country on the size, you tailor fit your program to the specific country. So if it's a development, what we prepared, and of course we're doing it for our clients. Then you prepare the franchise disclosure documentation for that particular country. Then, if possible, invite them to come to the Philippines to observe your business. Then the final valuation of your applicant when they are here, and then you can sign them up while they're here also. All right. Now, that was all about bringing your company outside the Philippines. Maybe the one or the other among you is also thinking of bringing in a franchise from abroad, buying a master franchise. Inquire first on the details of the franchise you want to get. So learn as much as possible about the company and the culture of the company. Okay. Check also if the products and pricing fits to the Philippines. Some franchisors are, of course, very accommodating, but there are also some franchises who say, okay, we are selling the whole world at the same price. Then it might be a problem for the Philippines. All right. If you properly applied for, you might get also the franchise disclosure. You might only get the domestic franchise disclosure and the master franchise program with the contract. If they have other master franchisees in other countries, communicate with them, ask them how they're doing and how the franchisor is, etc., etc. You are entitled to that. Also, in master franchising, a lot of terms are negotiable. So do it. If you need our help, we are here for you. Okay? Important, if you get a master franchise, are the provisions for sub-franchising. To make this clear from the very beginning, if you're allowed to sub-franchise and at what rules and regulations. Okay? Also important is the development program. How many outlets and what time span has to be realistic. Because you see, we have a huge population in the Philippines, but we have a very big spread between Class A and Class E. All right? So in other countries, sometimes they just divide the market by the number of inhabitants without checking actually the social standards of the people. So which would not maybe make sense in the Philippines that they have to open, let's say, like, because we have 110 million people, that they have to maybe open 200 stores, but it's all upscale. All right. So to make this clear also with the franchisor, to be realistic in the part of the development. And then, of course, the best thing would be to visit the franchisor before signing them up, so you can also feel the chemistry with them, if you really fit to them. And of course, please avail of our service in reviewing the documentation of the master franchise deal before you sign it up. So for any of these purposes of getting a franchise or from abroad, or if you want to franchise your business, if you're already developed or undeveloped, into the domestic franchise business, even if you're already developed by another consultant, we can assist you for the international market. All right. So you can get in touch directly with me on the 0917-321-5235 or email us at rk@rkfranchise.com or on the global at franmundo.com or my personal email, Rudolf Kotik at yahoo.com. So I hope you learned something about international franchising. But before we close for today, I have to make also a few announcements on what we have otherwise to offer for you. And okay, here we go. In case you're interested to learn more about franchising, you can request my book all about franchising. It's available for free as a PDF format. Just send us a note in Messenger or call our office and we send it to you. RK Franchise Consultancy developed almost 900 companies in the Philippines, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, in the last 22 years into professional franchisors. Okay, so if we do that, we come up with a whole package, structuring the franchise, the manuals, the marketing materials, the legal aspect, the franchise disclosure, franchise website, manual, franchisor manual, and of course, we take care of your international franchising. If you watch from abroad, you can get in touch with us through Franmundo. We are developing in 35 countries outside the Philippines franchises for you. All right, get in touch through franmundo.com. If you have a distribution company in the Philippines, we also do distributor ship packages where we come up with the structure, the marketing materials, the contracts, distributor manual, and territory mapping. And of course, all our clients in the franchise development and the RK become member of FIFA, the Filipino International Franchise Association. All right, which has a lot of services to its members as well. And please read our magazine, franchising.ph. Simply go to franchising.ph. The February magazine features developments of us from 2021, which are now available, a few lang of them. And it has 50 pages, the magazine, with articles about business and franchising. And in case you're interested to learn more generally about franchising, if you want to buy a franchise or you want to develop your business into a franchise, you may attend my seminar either on March 3 at 3 p.m. or April 4 at 4 p.m. on Zoom to get that. And it's free, okay? So you can register. Just call my office and they will give you the link to the seminar. If you want to learn more about franchising or you want to view the previous franchise hours for the last 60 episodes, what we had or so, please go to our YouTube channel, RK Franchise, and you find all the franchise hours there and some seminars and from the expos, everything from the last 2 years you will find there. And next Thursday, our guest is Mr. Jansi Uchiat. He founded Lavada, which is a very good laundry franchise. So we are here with at the end of the day. I would like to thank you so much, and I see you again next Thursday at the same time for the next episode of the franchise.